Lisa Shaw, and I'm a yes, and the webinar is being transcribed. I'm Lisa Shaw, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 14 years of experience working with kids, families, teens, and parents with a variety of mental health concerns. I just wanted to mention that if you have questions, you're welcome to drop them into the chat. I will try and answer them at different points in the presentation. But there will be a lot more time at the end of the presentation if you'd like to wait till the end to ask questions. And before getting started on our topic, I'm going to start out by doing a brief overview of what our agency does first. Okay, so at the Children's Health Council, we believe in the promise and potential of every child, teen, and young adult. And our mission is to transform young lives by providing culturally responsive learning and mental health services to families from diverse backgrounds, regardless of language, location, and ability to pay. Our values are led by expertise, compassion, community, and DEIB, recognizing inclusive, diverse, and equitable workplace and delivery are important in creating a beloved community for us. We specialize in working with families, children, and teens living with ADHD, autism, learning differences, anxiety, and depression through our two specialized schools, an outpatient mental health clinic, community education, and online resource library. We have different locations, including the Palo Alto location, our Ravenswood location, and we have two different San Jose offices where we provide clinical mental health services, executive functioning services, and where three of our different specialized schools are housed. If you're interested in connecting to any of our services or learning more, there should be more information at the end of our slide deck to do that. All right, so now we're going to move into our topic of fostering positive mental health in kids and teens. As you may know, taking care of our mental health is just as important as taking care of our physical health, but sometimes it can be easier said than done. In a big way, it's a bit like parenting. We know the basic elements for providing the best for our kids, but it isn't always that simple. Parenting is complex and challenging, and so much depends on the age and stage of your kid, their temperament, and yours as well. I always say that if we want to see changes in our kids, we need to be open to making changes too. However, this is not about perfect parenting, but acknowledging that we all have growth edges. If we strive for perfection, it's harder to admit our mistakes to ourselves and to our kids. So this is about how we foster mental health and remembering to have patience and grace for our kids and ourselves along the way. For our agenda, we'll define emotion regulation as and how it relates to mood symptoms. And we'll talk about strategies that include exercise, sleep, nutrition, connection, and breaks. All right, so what is emotion regulation? Think of emotion regulation as your kid's internal thermostat. It's the ability to notice a feeling, size it up, and then turn the volume up or down so that they can handle what's happening around them. When a kid can manage their emotions well, they can navigate life's speed bumps without every small problem turning into a major crash. Why is that important? Understanding whether your kid is exploding out of control or just feeling shaky is the first step. When we can name how big the emotion is, we know exactly what kind of support they need to get back to feeling okay, as exemplified in the feelings thermometer. Some key things to remember. Emotion regulation isn't just about calming down. It involves different skills. It's not just about less, it's about more too. It isn't just stopping a meltdown. It's also the ability to create and hold on to good feelings like focus, excitement, or calm. Positive vibes count. We usually focus on regulating the bad moods like anger or sadness, but kids also need to learn how to regulate big happy ones so they don't get overwhelmed by excitement. It's a both process. So regulation happens from the inside, what the kid does themselves, and the outside, how we as parents help soothe and guide them. So, how do we develop emotion regulation? Emotion regulation develops in relationship with others at a young age. So, with caregivers, with parents, with teachers. We first learn how to do things from our early experiences. For instance, if you think about how we learn any new skill, such as learning how to walk, first we see how to do it by watching others. Then we learn by assistance from others, walking along with others, and continuing to have scaffolds until we have confidence to try on our own. Then we start practicing doing it on our own until we've mastered it. It's the same with learning to regulate. First, parents breathe to help an infant calm. Then, parents breathe with their child. Then, parent reminds to breathe. Then, child breathes on their own to calm eventually after a lot of repetitions. So, the level and timing of developing emotion regulation can vary depending on genetics, temperament, environment that we come from, and emotional state. For instance, some kids just are naturally calmer with their temperament and have calmer parents. So when something stressful happens, they may be able to learn to regulate much quicker because of the temperament and because of their environment. Whereas a child who is much more prone to bigger emotions and has a more anxious temperament paired with a caregiver who might be more anxious with bigger emotions might have a more difficult time regulating in stressful situations, or it could take more support for longer periods to get them there. So, now we're going to talk about emotion regulation and mood symptoms. A person's capacity to emotionally regulate plays a role in the development of mood disorders like depression. There are a lot of different cognitive emotion regulation strategies that have been linked to the reports of increased mood problems like depression. Cognitive coping styles such as catastrophizing or blowing things out of proportion, rumination, dwelling on things, generating negative social comparisons or comparing ourselves to others, and self blame, blaming ourselves, are often considered ineffective emotion regulation techniques and are associated with depression in adolescence. So you can think of these cognitive coping styles as risk factors that can help increase and maintain mood symptoms. The good news is that although these cognitive coping strategies are risk factors um, for emotion regulation in general is flexible and can change. So now we're going to move into strategies to foster positive mental health. The first one is exercise. Exercise is a natural tool for your teen and child's mood. Research shows that physical activity isn't just for physical health, it's a powerful way to help teens and kids manage their emotions. I know why it works is because it reduces stress and anger. Regular exercise actually helps lower how often teens feel stressed out or hostile. It fights depression. It's actually proven to lift moods and decrease feelings of sadness. It has long lasting results. The positive effects on mental health can last for months, not just the hour they're at the gym. Studies have actually found that for some teens and kids, consistent exercise can be just as effective as medication in treating depression, both immediately and in the long term. All right. So now we're going to get into understanding um, HRV. HRV is basically heart rate variability. This is your child's stress thermometer. Think of it as a measure of flexibility. It's not just about how fast the heart beats, but how quickly the body can switch gears between being excited and being calm. High HRV is like a high performance car that can speed up and brake smoothly. Low HRV is like a car with sticky gears that struggles to adjust to the road. Why it matters for your child is that HRV is a physical window into your child's emotions. It actually tells us how well they can handle big feelings or tough situations. and is linked to emotion regulation. High resilience, which is someone who has high HRV, means that a kid can bounce back faster after being upset or stressed. They have more emotional gas in the tank to calm down. Low HRV means that they're more sensitive to stress. It might be harder for your kid to calm down once they're upset. They might feel stuck in a stressed state. The bottom line is that HRV shows us how much energy your child has available to manage their behavior and emotions when things get tough. All right. So now we're going to we're going to look further into what typically happens on a physiological level when encountering different emotionally charged situations. Um, so basically how our body responds. First, we start with emotionally stressful situation. It all starts with a stressful situation that causes big emotions. And then we move to the central nervous system, which is basically the gas pedal, is when the body immediately gears up for a challenge. It revs up the engine by increasing our heart rate, making us sweat, and sending blood to our muscles. We're officially in high alert here. And then that leads to the missing brake or the parasympathetic nervous system, the PNS. Normally, our body has a calming system that acts like a brake to slow us down. The struggle for kids and adults who haven't yet mastered emotion regulation skills is that the gas pedal is pushed all the way to the floor, and the brake isn't strong enough to stop the momentum, which leads to emotion dysregulation, or what we often see as a meltdown or a shutdown. So now let's take a look at how exercise changes the game. All right. So think of regular exercise as a tune up for the car's braking system. When there's an emotionally stressful situation, we're actually better able to, it improves the heart rate variability of the braking system and it makes it stronger and more responsive. The result is that when your child exercises regularly, their body becomes better at switching from the gas to the brake, AKA the parasympathetic system. Instead of a blowout, they're able to find their calm much faster. The bottom line is moving the body helps the brain stay in the driver's seat and have an emotionally regulated response. So ultimately, all of this means that physical exercise represents a unique non-pharmaceutical tool that can be implemented to improve overall control of our body's braking system to emotionally intense situations. Exercise, a secret weapon for emotional balance, helps your child and teen navigate emotional roller coaster. It doesn't just happen through talking, it happens through movement and exercise. When we exercise, it does three things. One, it helps kids and teens recover faster from upsetting situations. They still feel stressed, but they won't stay stuck in a bad mood as long. Even a short burst of activity helps them bounce back to normal quickly. Two, it builds emotional stamina. Think of exercise as training for the heart and the brain. Physically fit teens handle the hit of a stressful event better. Their bodies return to a calm state much faster than peers who don't exercise, and they're less likely to spiral into overthinking or rumination. And three, finally, exercise helps tune the nervous system or the HRV. Brief exercise gives kids and teens the biological tools to move from a state of high anxiety back to a state of relaxation without getting stranded in stress. Starting to exercise in adolescence is a great time to begin because adolescence is a critical time for brain development. Adding a short workout to their daily routine builds a lifelong habit of resilience. They aren't just getting stronger, they're learning how to stay steady in a stressful world. So, key takeaways, a little bit of movement goes a long way. It's one of the simplest ways to help your teen or kid manage stress, stop overthinking, and stay physically healthy all at once. All right, and now we're going to talk a little bit about quality and consistent sleep. How can sleep affect mood? Sleep disturbance, which includes insomnia, nightmares, or poor sleep quality, may lead to an increase in risk of a dysregulated mood over time, and even just a brief period of time. Ever have your sleep thrown off for a few days and notice you're less able to handle stress or feeling more irritable about things? Yes, sleep disturbance can impact adults just as much as kids and teens. So, the consequences of poor sleep include adverse health related outcomes among youth, such as becoming sick, not able to heal as quickly from sickness, more absences from school due to not being able to function as well, and poor academic functioning because we're limited in being able to think when we're sleep deprived. Studies also show that 1 hour less of sleep can be tied to greater odds of hopelessness, suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, and substance abuse. So, sleep and suicidality. Sleep variability, which is the lots of changes in timing of going to bed and getting up, is the most predictive of risks in a short period of time, between 6 weeks to a month, to increase suicidality. Sleep variability impacts quality of sleep, which then impacts fatigue, which impacts your ability to cope with daily life, self esteem, and then coping with stress. Among adolescents, if sleep disturbance is present, there is a 10 times increased risk to suicide, according to one of studies. So, we're going to talk a bit about sleep hygiene now. What is sleep hygiene? So, we have a lot of nice visuals here that talk about it. Good sleep hygiene practices include timing and routine, keeping naps short, limit daytime naps to 20 to 30 minutes. Anything longer can make it harder to fall asleep at night. Winding down, starting a relaxing routine 30 minutes before bed. Think about warm baths, reading, maybe some light stretches, keeping it calm. So avoiding heavy or stressful conversations right before lights out. And then there's diet and exercise, watching caffeine, avoiding stimulants like soda or coffee as the evening comes. And then we have eating light at night, avoiding heavy, spicy, or fried foods close to bedtime to prevent heartburn. Moving your body, just 10 minutes of walking or cycling can improve sleep. So trying to finish intense workouts several hours before bed is ideal. And then there's the perfect environment, having a cool and dark room, aiming for temperatures between 60 to 67 degrees, using blackout curtains or eye masks as needed. And then making sure to have screen-free zones, turning off TVs and phones, because blue light tells your brain to stay awake. So ideally, like at least a half an hour to an hour before bed. Daylight matters. Getting some natural sunlight during the day to help your body's internal clock stay on track is important. And then a pro tip, using white noise or fan can help drown out household sounds that might wake you up or your kid prematurely. And now we're going to talk a bit about nutrition. So, nutrition and brain functioning. The brain is an organ. Just like the heart or lungs, your child's brain is physically affected by what they eat. Poor diet causes inflammation, which doesn't just affect weight, it can impact mood, learning, and mental health. Important nutrients for the brain include healthy fats like omega 3s. The brain is 60% fat. These are the bricks that build brain cells for better focus and mood. Zinc and magnesium, or the spark plugs that help the brain send signals, stay calm, and sleep better. And then there's iron and vitamins, the oxygen delivery system that keeps the brain energized and productive. Bottom line is nutrients aren't just good for the brain, they are the building blocks it uses to work at all. Now, the link between nutrition and mental health, why it matters. Research shows that what our children eat directly impacts how they feel, learn, and behave. Even if a child looks healthy on the outside, hidden low levels of certain nutrients can affect focus and learning, especially for kids with ADHD or those struggling at school, mood, impacting symptoms of depression and anxiety, brain power, helping kids reach their full natural potential. And again, key nutrients for the brain are the omegas that we talked about. The vitamins and minerals like zinc, magnesium, and iron are also essential. But it's also important to create a healthy balance. So it's important to have food for nutrition first. Supplements are meant to add to a healthy diet, not to necessarily replace them. Teens and kids with nutrient-rich diets generally report better mental well-being. There are no magic pills. Vitamins won't make a child a genius, but they ensure the brain has the fuel it needs to work its best. You can't always see a nutritional deficiency. Many kids don't get enough of the good stuff from modern diets alone. But before starting any supplements or any kind of diet, please consult with your pediatrician, psychiatrist, or nutritionist to find the right plan for your child. All right, so the next slide is about behavioral food reactions. There's a growing number of children who are sensitive to certain components of food that can affect behaviors. These are different to food allergies as they don't involve an immune response. For instance, artificial food colors and preservatives have been shown to increase hyperactive behavior in school kids in the UK and may actually contribute to symptoms of ADHD. In fact, kids with ADHD can react to a range of natural and artificially occurring substances and additives in food, which can have mild to severe effects on behavior and ability to focus. Food reactions can have an effect on mood and behavior in kids and teens as well. All right, so now we're going to talk a bit about the gut and the brain. Food reactions may be related to poor gut health. There has been an explosion of interest in recent years regarding this. We have 100 trillion bacteria that live inside our body, mostly in our gut. Many of these bacteria are our friends, and they are critical for our health. For instance, they help to keep the lining of our stomach and intestines healthy so we can absorb nutrients and keep out toxic material and undigested food particles. They help our body fight disease and bacteria. They help to make and absorb nutrients, and they play an important role in signaling messages to our brain. This is called the gut-brain axis. Our diet has an important influence on the bacteria in our gut, and therefore this is another way that food can influence our learning, mood, and behavior. Plant foods that contain fiber are important for the good bacteria to feed on and perform their functions, while the pathogenic bacteria thrive on a diet high in sugar and refined carbs. So, what is a healthy diet for mental health and well-being? A healthy diet for our body is also a healthy diet for our brain. There are a lot of different diets out there, and it can be easily confusing to know what is healthy. However, it is actually quite simple. The important factor that these diets have in common is that they focus on avoiding processed foods, food from packages, and eating whole foods. Example, cooked from raw ingredients. A diet high in plant foods is naturally high in nutrients and fiber. This includes a variety of fruit and vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. It's very important to eat a good amount of healthy fats like virgin olive oil, avocado, oily fish, and nuts. And in fact, research is now showing that diets high in healthy fats, low in refined carbs, and high in plant foods have the best impact on our health and are better for maintaining a healthy weight. All right, so now we're going to talk a bit about connection and attachment. So this is a huge topic that has a wealth of information out there. Today's going to be just a quick dive into understanding some of the key components. So we're going to talk a bit about the theory of attachment, which was created by a man named John Bowlby, a British psychoanalyst who wanted to understand kids' development. You can find info on attachment styles. There's going to be a list of resources from Positive Parenting Alley. So attachment styles are developed early on in childhood from responsiveness of caregivers and can impact emotion regulation. Think of the 2-year-old who wants to run ahead of parents, but looks back to make sure they're still there. This would be an example of a secure and confident attachment in a child. Now, the one who is avoidantly attached might not look at the caregiver at all and avoid eye contact or ignore them upon seeing them. With the anxiously attached child, these are the kids who are super clingy and inconsolable, crying when away from the caregiver, and when reunited with the caregiver might remain upset and unable to be comforted. With the disorganized attached child, the child might be demanding, controlling, and punitive towards the caregiver and may freeze in front of the caregiver. So, what helps build a secure, connected relationship, you might say? So, the basic ingredients are learning to attune and validate a child's feelings and experience. Attunement is just being aware of a child's experience and responding to it, while validation is letting a person know that their experience is important. For example, your child cries after he falls, and you go to comfort and say, "That must have been scary. Let's clean up your knee," while giving them a hug and rub on the back. So there are 4 S's of showing up, and this is one way to develop an extension of secure attachment, as discussed by Dr. Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson. Um, the first is SAFE. Acronym is SAFE, and that's basically keeping kids safe and making them feel safe. Repair when needed, so making apologies if you've made a mistake is really important. The second one is seen, truly seeing your kids, meaning being attuned to them, understanding their inner life, and responding to what we see in a way that kids feel felt. Because this will provide that emotional anchoring and the regulation. And then there's soothed. When your child is experiencing distress, attuning to them may not take away their suffering, but you being present with them can help them feel calm and give them the space that they need. And then finally, security, which results from the first 3 S's being implemented. Providing these S's can help your kids and your teen with emotion regulation and learn to help themselves eventually. All right. So another important component to consider is our own mental health and well-being as parents and how we show up with our kids and teens. And of course, none of this is perfect. Stress is something that can be transmitted between parent to child and impact the way children may perceive the world. When parents struggle with their mental health, children may internalize this stress, leading to challenges in emotion regulation and social and emotional development. So, what's the impact of parental well being on kid and teen mental health? Well, first, you are their emotional support. Kids are experts at sensing your energy. When you're overwhelmed, they often feel it too. Your stress can unintentionally affect sleep, schoolwork, and how they behave. Research shows a strong link between parent and teen mental health. For instance, teens facing depression are significantly more likely to have a parent struggling with the same. Secondly, you are their best teacher. You don't have to be perfect, but you are their primary model for handling life's ups and downs. Kids learn how to manage stress by watching how you do it. So when you prioritize your own mental health and stress management, you are giving them the how-to guide for their own lives. And then finally, stress changes how we parent. When our tank is empty, we react differently than when we are calm. High stress can lead to less patience and harsher discipline. And kids may not understand you're just stressed. They might think they did something wrong, leading them to either act out or shut down. Bottom line is taking time for your mental health isn't selfish. It's actually a gift to them as well. So now we're going to talk just about a few strategies, and this is obviously not exclusive, but these are things that can be really helpful in fostering your own positive well-being. The first is reducing loneliness and building community. Being a parent is very tough, and it's important to build a community of people around you to help support you and your child regularly, whether that's through joining a support group, intentionally setting up time with friends and family, volunteering with your kids' school, or creating some kind of connection with other parents. Building in regular stress management routines, just like brushing your teeth and eating regularly. It's important to build those stress reducing habits into your routine as a non negotiable. This can range from attending regular weekly therapy, taking 5-minute breaks to breathe, taking a walk, journaling. Consistency is key. Excuse me. I'm recovering from a cold. Finally, modeling healthy coping for kids and teens. Actions speak louder than words. Modeling, communicating feelings openly, and coping with stress and upset in healthy ways is important because, again, they're watching us. And then the next one is about friendships and connection. Children's friendships are closely associated with children's positive well-being. Children who enjoy close friendships are more likely to experience higher levels of happiness, life satisfaction, and self-esteem, and less likely to be lonely, depressed, or victimized. And what are some ways you have helped your kids stay connected? Some ways might be sports, religious groups, volunteering, getting to know your kids' friends, and hosting play dates or get-togethers. Okay. And finally, we're going to talk about downtime and breaks. So rest is not idleness. Parents, families, and students can and should think carefully about the commitments they make to sports, clubs, and other extracurriculars, as well as tutoring, test prep, and other academic enrichment programs. No one thing is likely to cause overload, but the combo of several contribute to the lack of free time and time for sleep that so many students experience. Next slide. Kids need to learn how to manage their time and cope with uncomfortable feelings such as boredom and impatience, and they need to learn how to solve their own problems. Downtime gives them the emotional and cognitive space to recognize that in fact, there are problems that require solutions, and then gives the brain an opportunity to think deeply about these problems and possible solutions. Being on screens or overproductive may keep kids from opportunities to think through things and problem solve. Engaging in what we call higher order thinking, which is an important executive functioning skill. Finally, true downtime is an important opportunity to de-stress and really relax. Kids and teens who are overscheduled are at a higher risk for anxiety, depression, burnout, and other serious psychological problems.
I
Kids
can
and
I
oh,
can
sorry.
present the rest of this slide for you. So if you want to like give your voice a break for a minute, that might be helpful.
Oh yeah, sure. Go on.
Okay. Um, so children and teens who are overscheduled are at higher risk for anxiety, depression, burnout, and other serious psychological problems. Kids, especially teens, aren't adept at regulating their own downtime, often sleeping too little and packing in too many activities. Parents must constantly remain vigilant and make sure that children have space to take a breath and relax, which sometimes requires setting limits even when a child isn't happy about it. but all kids, all people in fact, need unstructured, quiet time. If you see that your child isn't sleeping enough or seems to be more moody, teary, or angry than usual, it might be a good time to evaluate whether more downtime is required to help your child feel happier and less stressed.
Great. Thank you. So, what types of breaks are effective? Endeavors such as artistic creation, playing outside, daydreaming, solitary creative play, or taking a relaxing bath all fall into the category of effective breaks. Unstructured playtime provides an opportunity for imaginary and creative play and allows kids to practice divergent thinking. They benefit from the freedom to explore new ideas without fear of failure, or the stress of grades, and regular exposure to new experiences can also increase their cognitive flexibility, preparing them for academic challenges. Video games and all other screen-related activities require kids to be fully engaged in problem solving, competition, or socializing, and sometimes all three. Primary reason why kids have trouble falling asleep is that they're staring at screens too close to bedtime. Activity is overstimulating rather than calming, and the light from the screen tricks the brain into staying awake rather than preparing the child for sleep. Think of all the times a solution pops into your head when sleeping, relaxing, walking, showering, and etc. So breaks are definitely an important last piece to the puzzle. All right, so here are some resources for you to support your positive mental health journeys for you and your kids. Um, uh, you can find all of these resources on our slides. And if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to put those in the chat. Thank you for participating in our webinar today. We hope you learned something new. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to post. And if you're interested in connecting with CHC, there are a multitude of ways to connect. Stay informed by joining the virtual village about all of our happenings. And you can also connect with us on social media or contact us for any questions about our services.
There was a question in the chat about
Okay.
can you test for food reactions and behavior from your food slide? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you wanted to test for food reactions, you can. I don't think there is a specific test to particularly test for food reactions and behavior, but there's definitely some correlational stuff. So it would probably require you to rule out other factors, like, maybe there's some stress going on at school or at home. But I don't think there is a direct test for the food and behavior. It's really more correlational. It's okay, we've tried everything else and nothing else is working. And then maybe we need to, test some other things like food, and then process of elimination by eliminating the certain foods that they might be sensitive to. At that point, you can probably make a strong connection um, to the possibility that it's food. But yeah, there isn't any particular test that I know of.
Great. Rigo, I don't know if you have any questions or if there's any follow-up that you would like.
No questions from on my part, but I did just drop in an answer a couple questions that came up regarding the recording. So we will be sharing the recording of this presentation in the next couple of days. In the meantime, if you have another question or that you're wondering about, feel free to drop it into the chat in the remaining moments that we have. But we will be sharing the recording, and that will include, again, the links that Lisa just presented there towards the end, both for Children's Health Council and then some of the resources where you can obtain more information. If there are any other questions, again, please drop them into the chat now. We have a few minutes left before we close, and that way we can try to get them answered the best we can. There's a question about suggestions for preteens on limiting screen time besides Mom Says So.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think that's a tough one. I mean, because screens are, hugely affecting our kids and teens these days. There is this, and I don't have it in the resources, but it's something that I can send out. There is like a media screen agreement that I sometimes use, that I can send a link to, that, it basically allows for you and your teen to agree upon different, different screen limitations for the use of screens. For instance, like we can't use them at the dinner table. We can only use them during certain times of the day, right? And so it allows you to collaboratively talk with your teens about screen use, while also educating them, because it also has information about just how impactful screens can be on like relationships and brain development. And so it's a way for you to educate them, but also collaborate with them on ways of limiting their screen in the household for ways that can work for everybody. Because I know at that age, it can be hard when it's just mom says so. It's best to take a more collaborative approach, I find. But yeah, good question.
I think that came from Common Sense Media, right?
That's the one.
Okay.
Yes.
There's another question. What are your thoughts regarding screens also serving as a source of community for many children, as we know that isolation and loneliness can lead to depression?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think we are kind of in the age of screens, and I think that there's definitely a place for it. As long as, we are being very intentional about it, and it isn't overtaking sort of their entire lives. I think there can be a balance that can be found and had, and lots of conversations about screen time and sort of what that balance looks like, I think, with your kid and teens starting out early, is really good. And if you have, access to mental health therapists, it could be good to involve them in those conversations. Um, yeah, and yes, I think it's definitely a huge issue, and especially, coming out of the pandemic, like it was the only source of connection for a lot of our kids and teens. And so, shifting from that to everybody has to meet in person can be very challenging. But I think there's definitely a time and place for it. It's really just about the balance, finding a balancing act and having open communication and being able to set those limits around it. Okay, I see a question about helping decrease phone use in teens, especially when there are on the older side, like 17 and up. Yeah, I think it's a tough one, and especially because they're almost adults. I think it's really, about sort of creating that common understanding around what is the reason why we want to decrease phone use? Like, how is it impacting this kid? How is it impacting like the different parts of their lives? And, what, you know, constantly being on the phone has, and its negative effects on this person. And then collaboratively, again, trying to come up with solutions with the teen, because I find, again, at this age, and especially because 17-year old, almost an adult, they're kind of moving into that place where they are, wanting to be autonomous and they want to make decisions for themselves. And they rightfully should, but I think providing the education to them and sort of letting them know, like, hey, this is an issue, from this perspective. What should we do about this? And like, how should we address this? Is a place to start. But again, if there is a mental health provider, it's good to bring those things up to them and try to facilitate conversations with them around that. The anxious generation, right. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely, I'm definitely familiar with that book. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Um, Suggestions for helping my teen who has a hard time making friends due to them being very shy. Yeah, it's a great question. I think, it's really tough these days. I think that it can be really helpful to get them involved in some of the extracurriculars, like we talked about, finding their interests and helping them sort of hone in on those interests. Will usually elicit connecting with people that they like, and whether that's a book club or a club at school or, some kind of a sport. I think that also can kind of help build their confidence. So I think that's really helpful. Like just connecting to any kind of school activities or even outside activities outside of school can be really helpful, and encouraging them to connect with these different interests that they like, or ways to maybe help them connect with people that they enjoy. Because it can be tough, and especially as a teen. I find that connecting to interests, though, even as a shy person, can really help bridge the gap sometimes. Schools are trying to do some. Okay. So bullies can also cause many problems to our kids. Yeah. Are schools trying to do, um, yeah, that's a good question. So, um, your concern is about bullies and how bullies can impact our kids, is what it sounds like. Because if there is some kind of a bullying situation, it is important for you guys to work with the school on that and report that. Um, I guess I'm not understanding the last part of the question. Are schools trying to have conferences for teens to educate them about healthy mental health and wellness? That's a great question. Yeah. I do think that in some schools, they do have mental health and wellness centers, counseling offices, where they do try to reach out to teens and kids about, like, the impact of mental health and things that can be healthy for them. But I think if you're seeking specific yeah, if you're seeking like specific ways to sort of educate your child, I think reaching out to the school and letting them know, hey, this is going on, especially if they do have any kind of challenges that you notice that are impacting them, to connect them with like a school counselor, or to talk to the principal about, sort of educating them more about these kinds of things. And there's a number of books out there too that I think are also really helpful. And some of the resources that I listed, there's some things there that we could also help connect teens to and kids to help them learn a little bit more. And also, just sharing the slide deck with them and letting them know, hey, this is what I learned, could be a way for you to sort of, start having those conversations with them. I think like we are, again, like a very powerful source for our kids and teens. And so having these conversations about things that can be really helpful for them, for their mental health and well-being, and then showing them the resources, and having conversations is one way to educate them.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I think we're going to end it there. So thank you to everybody for logging in, for participating, adding your questions and concerns in the chat, so that Lisa could address them there for you. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I look forward to sending out the recording very soon so you can continue to refer back to it and review some of the resources that were included there. Thank you also to Jenny for stepping in and supporting Lisa during the presentation. Thank you to Rosalba for interpreting for us this evening as well. And we look forward to seeing all of you logging in for a future presentation. We've got a couple more topics that we're hoping to line up before the end of the school year. And both, with Children's Health Council, and then a few of our own, since the school year is coming to a rapid close very soon here. So thank you very much again for joining us. Thank you again, Lisa, Jenny, and Rosalba. And have a wonderful evening, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, everybody.